These are the best uses for Minecraft's new Sulfur Cube, from insane TNT pranks to new methods of transport to small things like playing for dogs and decorating your base with wardens, or even building hot air balloons. There's a ton of secret uses for the Sulfur Cube that you might not know about. The most iconic use for the Sulfur Cube is definitely the ghast cluster bomb. Just tie a ton of Sulfur Cubes to your ghast and then fly over a target, shoot one of them with a flame bow, and then shear the rest, and it's just absolute carnage, and there isn't really a great way to defend against this, since lit cubes automatically unleash themselves from the ghast, and by the time you can even see the ghast, it's probably already too late. Even if you manage to kill the ghast, all the TNT is still gonna drop, and it's just gonna be carnage no matter what. You can also just fly up to build height above your target and bomb from there. The cubes have a 5-second fuse, so you can drop them from super far up and they will still explode on the ground. Now, from my testing, lighting a couple of different cubes from the top of the ghast is probably smart so that more TNT on the ground actually gets ignited. The easiest way to do this is just build yourself a sulfur cube farm or get a bunch of them in a hole and then just throw a stack of TNT in there and they'll just all absorb the blocks. And from here, you can either pick them up in a bucket, or probably the best thing to do is just to let them out of there and then try to spread them out a little bit like this. That way you can actually lead each one of them individually. Just make sure you don't crouch when you're leading them, otherwise they're all gonna go onto a single cube, and that's like really annoying. Now, as for your ghast, I would tie this guy to a fence post that's a couple blocks underground. That way it actually stays closer to the ground for once, and then just break your fence post and your lead, and you can go ahead and hop on your ghast and get on out of here. So this really is a pretty small amount of TNT, but even if we go ahead and light one of those guys and then shear it, you're gonna see that we get quite a bit of explosion happening. Did I miss? I must have missed. Well, anyway, this bow doesn't have flame on it. I'm stupid. So assuming that you're not dumb like me, it will actually cause quite a bit of carnage. It's also going to throw the cubes everywhere as well, because they get propelled by the explosions from their neighbors. So even if they land in a small area, you're still going to get quite a bit of happenings. The more cubes, the more chaos. So really go for like 50 to 100 of these things. Sulfur cubes also make absolutely insane things like this possible. We can travel for hundreds and hundreds of blocks incredibly quickly just by using one sulfur cube and then a tiny little box tin highway. Monorails are now possible, and all you need is a pig on a boat. Look how well that worked. And of course, you can go back the other way as well just by shooting this guy. So I'm using, of course, a power 5 and punch 2 bow to give him like maximum punchiness. So this is a pretty basic setup. We just have a line of ice because your head will be inside of this and you don't want to suffocate. This also gives it extra slidiness. We have some walls or some panes on the edges to contain the cube, and then some lower slabs on top so that you can't actually punch it out of there. And then this is a frog light sulfur cube, which is incredibly bouncy and slidey. Now, because Mojang is silly, we cannot just ride in a boat directly attached to a sulfur cube, but lucky for us, Mojang is indeed silly. So if we just put a pig inside that boat and then a saddle on top of it, then we can ride it and get pulled along by the sulfur cube, no problem. Now, even with a slight nudge, he's gonna go for quite a ways. But this system right here does have the issue that if you don't give it enough momentum, you're gonna get kind of stranded in the middle of nowhere. Now, you can also set up like little roller coasters like this, because you can actually launch these things with slime block pistons or bubble columns or geysers or really any other way of moving entities. So if we just press this button, we're gonna go on our way to the next stop in our system. Now, if you want to actually build something like this reliable and survival, I would highly recommend playing around with it in creative, because there's a lot of ways that these guys can be kind of annoying. Like they could just glitch through blocks, they could fall out of place, they need like pinpoint precision alignment. But this video that I found on Twitter is like a great showcase of the absolute insanity that you can do with these style of roller coasters. I think this took them 12 years to build, but it is perfection, and I want one. Now, you can also make hot air balloons to an extent. Now, I think this only works on Bedrock Edition right now, but if you get yourself a slow falling potion, you can get yourself a wool sulfur cube, because these ones are like the light ones, so they should fly a little bit better. Basically, you just want to splash this entire setup right here, even the pig for good measure. So then we just go ahead and we tie our boat to the guy, and then we simply push the boat off of the edge. Now, we need to slightly nudge this guy so he's also a little bit off the edge right there. And now you need to go ahead and hop on to your pig if you can find it. There he is. Now, if we hit this guy with some knockback too, as you can see, we kind of go flying and then we can just like float here. So you can legitimately just kind of go flying around with your little hot air balloon. I mean, this actually works remarkably well. I'm pretty sure this was removed from Java, but if it was, you guys have my permission to riot because this is actually legitimately fun. We literally have hot air balloons in vanilla Minecraft. Like, this is so cool, man. This is never gonna get used by anyone, but it's genuinely great. And guess what? You can tie more things to this boat as well. You could do a very, you know, Temu style happy ghast. If you can't afford a happy ghast, then maybe you can afford sulfur slime hot air balloon. Now, if you use a power and punch bow, that's going to give it too much momentum and your lead will break and then you're going to be slowly falling down to the ground. But if you just use like a regular bow, then yeah, as you can see, that's also going to break your lead because it's just kind of stupid. What can I say? This next one is definitely Bedrock Edition exclusive, but it was on Java and then they removed it. So do with that information what you will. But we're going to have the typical setup. We're going to be using a plank sulfur cube, and this one allows you to actually travel across the ocean. Now, because it's out of your reach, you will have to be using a spear for this. So the trick with this is to primary attack and give it some knockback, and then immediately switch to like the secondary attack with the spear where you're holding it out in front of you, or right click, and that is in theory going to chain together multiple of these attacks. This used to be a lot better, but it does still kind of work. Now, if you aim at like the bottom part of the cube, it actually launches it up out of the water, and then you can combo it in the air and get quite a bit of airtime and actually launch yourself out of the water and go across land. There's a lot of actually really fun things that you can do with this, but it's a lot more tedious than it used to be. And even if you just get really close to the cube and then attack it going downwards, it'll just bounce you out of the air like a good 20 blocks. And it will usually kick you out of the boat if you do it like that, but you know, it's possible. Genuinely, such a missed opportunity this update is not being able to put saddles on top of these sulfur cubes and actually ride them around. It would have made everything so much easier and so much more chaotic and fun. Oh my god, dude. What was that? We're just flying in the air. This gets to be more insane when you use the punch and power bow because you just go a lot quicker. Now, if you overdo it, you will just break the lead at some point. Now, Mojang really tried to make these sulfur cubes immune to all forms of damage. That way, we could not use them for silverfish experience farms, but I found a way. I found a way because there's always a way in Minecraft. They did not think about the pufferfish area of attack damage, and as you can see, that actually damages them, but it does not kill them because they don't take poison damage, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, if we splash these guys with some infestation, you can see that it's not like the most reliable thing, but it does work. So that was 64 cubes in there, and the more cubes you have, the more leakage you have from these silverfish. But I found that if you just have a few of them in there, then it's really not that bad, but you know what? It's not a quick farm at all, but it is still possible, so take that, Mojang. So if you have a bunch of tame dogs in the area and you punch a cube, they're also all going to punch the cube and actually play with it and kind of like play fetch with it to an extent. They'll just beat it up. This thing will never die, but you can kind of like play with your dogs this way. This is a great little like hidden feature slash Easter egg little mechanic in the game that no one really like talks about. I haven't seen this much online at all. And then of course you can always just pick up the cube if you want your dogs to actually be like useful. Useful? Are they useful? I don't know if they're really that useful. Now I am curious. All you fellas, go fetch. Go for it. Nope, they're not gonna go for it. What a bunch of lazy bums. It's too much work for you? Jeez. Another more impressive version of this is getting the Warden to play tetherball. You can either just drop it in a hole and put in some sulfur cubes and it'll just keep attacking them forever, or you can tie a sulfur cube to a fence and just let it go around in circles forever. Honestly, kind of hilarious, but if you relog, he will lose aggro on the cube, so you'll need some way to reactivate it and or stop the Warden from just walking off. Another fun one is that if you put a really high resistance cube in there, it looks like the Warden is just super weak because it like barely moves around at all. He's actually just more pushing it than he is punching it. Or you can put a super bouncy one in there and then watch him walk back and forth. You know, he needs to get in his steps. He's been a very lazy bum, hiding underground. Now, if you put this cube too high up in the air, or if it gets too far away, it will just laser beam the guy and then it's going to essentially instantly die. So don't do that. As far as I can tell, they will just solely focus on the one cube and they will just keep walking in circles forever. So this is honestly a pretty good base decoration. Do it. Put in your base. I dare you. Now, interestingly, the Wither does attack the sulfur cubes, and it actually manages to light the TNT sulfur cubes, which I did not expect. What are you doing? What? You know what? I'm not gonna question it. I'm not sure when it would be useful, but you can set up a automatic wither spawner with dispensers and then have like hidden TNT sulfur cubes in the wall or something. There's potential and possibilities here. And this is actually the short fuse from being lit by other explosions. So it's not 5 seconds, it's closer to like 2 seconds. Some honorable mentions: you can of course launch the TNT sulfur cubes if you use a knockback 2 and sharpness 5 spear and you drink a strength 2 potion. You can launch these things much further. Now, unfortunately, on Bedrock Edition, if you have a bunch of them piled up in a single spot, they're going to stay as one cube, basically. They're not going to spread out if you launch them, even if you launch them with slime. So it's not actually a great way to get a bunch of carnage in one area. So you would need to actually spread them out kind of like this, and then hit them one at a time in order to spread them out and do maximum damage. Now, Phoenix SC did build this absolutely insane slime launching machine that just nuked an entire area. This is incredibly impractical to build in survival, but it's something that you could, in theory, do, and it's pretty impressive looking. However, it is for Java Edition. If you want to see a bunch of other insane mini games that you can play with the Sulfur Cube, then make sure to check out that video. Links are everywhere, but thank you for watching, and make sure to subscribe.